The ship groaned against the wind. Light spilled through a narrow window, drifting across a rough wooden table. A sailor broke a biscuit that cracked like stone. He chewed slowly, washed it down with a mouthful of rum, and stared at the sea beyond the glass. It was not a meal. It was endurance. For more than 2 centuries, from the 1600s to the dawn of steam, the men of Britain's Royal Navy lived between hunger and duty. Their world was measured in rations, not days. A pound of bread, a gallon of beer, a tot of rum. No one joined the Navy for comfort. They joined to survive the sea, and, somehow, to command it. What kept them alive was not glory or faith. It was an exact science of supply, bread that could not rot, drink that could not spoil, and discipline that could not bend. This is how an empire learned to eat at sea. By the mid-17th century, Britain's Royal Navy had become the moving spine of its empire. Thousands of men served on hundreds of ships that never touched the shore for months at a time. Each required more than courage. It required calories, a precise calculation of survival. At the heart of it was ship's biscuit, or hardtack. Flour and water baked until every drop of moisture was gone. It could last a year, sometimes longer, and still be cold food. In 1815, William Falconer recorded the process in obsessive detail. Dough pounded by men riding a horse machine, molded like muffins, stamped, baked, and dried again in lofts over the ovens. 70 biscuits a minute rolled from the naval bakeries. London built entire complexes for this work. The victualling yards, where barrels, bread, salt beef, and beer were prepared for the fleet. Every voyage was a floating warehouse. Pounds of flour, tons of meat, tens of thousands of biscuits. The mathematics of empire were baked into those ovens. Alongside the bread came the daily gallon of beer, or ale, weak but safer than water, and later rum, measured by the ladle. For officers, it was logistics. For sailors, it was the difference between loyalty and mutiny. On the quarterdeck they called it provisioning. Below deck the men called it life. Hardtack might outlive the man who ate it, but it destroyed his teeth first. By the time ships reached the tropics, the biscuits crawled with weevils. Sailors dunked them in rum or beat them with the hilt of a knife. Some crushed them into stews thickened with pork fat or peas. Others joked that if the bugs didn't move, the bread was too old. The rest of the diet was no kinder. Salted beef, pickled pork, dried peas, oatmeal, butter when it lasted, cheese when it hadn't yet soured. The air below deck was dense with sweat, smoke, and brine. Rats were a certainty, mold a companion. Fresh water turned foul within weeks. Barrels bred algae that glowed in the dark. In 1660, Samuel Pepys, the naval administrator whose diary preserved the Navy's daily truths, watched officers eat peas and pork and boiled beef. Years later, as Secretary to the Admiralty, he warned that to reduce either the quality or the quantity of victuals was to provoke seamen in the tenderest point. He knew starvation could spark a mutiny faster than any whip. The sailors invented humor to endure it. They named their dishes like insults: dog's body, peas pudding, bug-ewe, oatmeal with fat, lobscouse, meat stew thickened with hardtack, dandy-funk, crumbled biscuit mixed with molasses. Each was both joke and survival. But the deadliest enemy was invisible: scurvy. Gums bled, skin split, minds dimmed. At its worst, half a crew might die before landfall. The ocean gave riches to Britain, but it also took its men one tooth, one bone, one voyage at a time. Hope arrived in small discoveries that the world ignored. In 1601, Sir James Lancaster, a privateer in the service of the Crown, noticed that only one of his ships remained healthy. Each morning, that crew drank 3 spoonfuls of lemon juice. The rest suffered and died. Lancaster reported it. London filed it away. 200 years passed. At last, in 1795, the Admiralty adopted citrus as a daily ration. The policy saved thousands of lives and changed the flavor of the sea. When Spain joined Napoleon and cut off its lemons, Britain turned to the West Indies for limes, and the word limey was born. Another reform came earlier, in 1740, from Vice Admiral Edward Vernon, nicknamed Old Grog for his weathered cloak of grogram cloth. He saw sailors hoard their rum rations, drink them all at once, and spiral into chaos. Vernon ordered the rum mixed with 4 parts water, served twice a day. The men cursed him, then drank. Soon the Navy sailed on grog, not rum. Some added sugar, the lucky squeezed in lime. These changes were not luxury, they were control. Bread, rum, and citrus formed a trinity of endurance, discipline you could taste. Each reform turned chaos into routine, routine into empire. The Royal Navy did not conquer the world by cannon alone. It conquered it by ration. By the mid-19th century, the age of sail was dying. Steam replaced wind. Iron replaced oak. Voyages shortened, and fresh provisions followed. The old hardtack ovens cooled one by one. The last Navy biscuits were baked in the 1860s, kept as souvenirs of an age that had fed itself on dryness and salt. Yet the culture lingered. Songs about rum and rations echoed on steamships. Nicknames like Jack Tar outlived the ropes they once hauled. The taste of the sea changed, but its memory did not. Aboard those ships, generation after generation had learned the same lesson, that endurance was not heroism, it was habit. From Trafalgar to distant colonies, Britain's strength had been measured in loaves, not laurels. A fleet that could feed itself, could rule the world. And so, when the sails came down and the engines rose, the silence that followed was not victory. It was the sound of men remembering what hunger used to taste like. Outside the cabin window, the sea keeps moving. It beats the hull with the patience of history. For every battle written in stone, thousands more were fought in silence, against rot, thirst, and the slow ache of endurance. The men of the Royal Navy faced them with a square of bread and a measure of rum. Centuries later, that taste still speaks. Salt, wood smoke, and the faint burn of spirit on the tongue. The age of sail is gone, its ships preserved in harbors, its stories told in past tense. Yet the truth remains simple. Before Britain learned how to win wars, it learned how to outlast them. So if you ever stand inside a restored ship and feel the wood breathe with the tide, listen. You might hear the ghost of a man breaking a biscuit in half, raising his cup to the light and swallowing another day at sea.